Well done. What's going on, everybody? It's Matt, the Lumberjack Landlord, here with his good buddy Dion, who's apparently already trying to steal my job here, although I don't know why he would want the pay cut, because our YouTube revenues are nowhere near yours. So, but that's okay. We're splitting literally dozens of dollars.
Dozens. Now, if we talked about Amazon money, that's almost a recognizable percentage of income.
Yeah. It's still a rounding error. Still a horrible rounding error. But yeah, so we're here to talk about more. Landlords suck. It should be illegal. I think what's really interesting is that we got a lot of landlords that were like, yeah, we know how we get treated. And then a bunch of tenants that were like, yeah, you guys do suck. Of course, not our own tenants, more just like, shouting at the TV screen, I'm angry. But
I have tenants who watch my content.
Yeah, exactly.
And they watch the videos where I raised their rent. And
yes.
They message me and they say, you're absolutely right. I'm getting a better deal than normal. I'm happy. It's crazy.
It really is all about the thing where it's like, there are slumlords out there. And the funny part is great landlords like myself or Dion or Millennial Mike or Zuber or any fill in the blank, Cody and Christian. We want bad landlords out of the business. Often we're the ones buying their asset and then spending tens of thousands of dollars, making it a nice place to live. But you can't be shocked at the economics of it and the fact that we then have to, raise the rent. But I don't ask that first. I don't go into it saying, I need you to fund all the repairs in the building. No. I'll fund all of those. But then by that time I have a nicer building that I know I can rent for more. And then if you decide that you don't want to stay, that's okay. You don't have to stay. Free country. That's kind of how I view it. So I never buy a deal expecting that my tenant rents are going to fund my rehab.
I usually see the comments talking about owning more than one property should be illegal. Mm-hmm. Or they say something like, you should be taxed more if you own more than one property, which is, that means they literally aren't paying attention to taxes, because the tax incentive program we have incentivizes people to own more than one property.
Correct.
Because they know we need it.
Correct.
And then they'll say things like, we can't afford houses because too many investors are buying them and buying up the prices.
That's right.
Last year, the largest group of home buyers, which is up from the year before. The year before, the largest group of home buyers represented 37% of homes purchased. Last year, it was 43%. Were millennials.
Yeah.
It wasn't hedge funds. It wasn't buy and hold investors. So every time I see the meme that says, millennials are waiting for their housing crash to happen so that they can buy a house, I actually respond with smart millennials who purchased a house or watching it go up, making more and more money.
Yeah. Oh, I just saw Cody and Christian. Hey, Cody and Christian, if you guys want to join, you're more than welcome to. Offers always open. Text me and say that you want to, and I'll send you the link. But I understand if you're busy, you have a lot of things going on. So, but yeah, that's exactly it. It's like, so when I was meeting with my attorney, basically we're talking about strategy coming up because we do have a couple of cases coming up. One of the cases that we actually have coming up is somebody that flat out has said, I'm not paying you rent. And I said, flat out, I'm evicting your ass. So the interesting thing about it is New Hampshire, I don't know if they do it this way in Washington, but here's something that I learned new to the process. So she defaulted, meaning that she requested, when I posted eviction papers, she said, I want a court date. So then they're going to be hanging out with Zuber today. That's okay, guys. That's all right. We understand. So then she basically, she didn't show up for court. So I got a default summary judgment against her. The court then spends 7 days filling out that paperwork and letting her know, hey, you got a default summary judgment against you. You have the option to appeal. So then what do they do as a delay tactic? They appeal. But what's really cool is in the state of New Hampshire, if they want to appeal, they actually have to pay a portion of the rent in order to appeal that the court then holds. So I don't know if they do it that way in Washington, but for her to appeal, she's going to actually have to write the court a check for $750 to pay me for that week's worth of rent So now, hey, thanks guys for the super chat. Thank you so much. That was officially your, oh my word. Is that the first time you've ever super chatted anybody? That is not right, guys. You watch Dion all the time. Dion, have you never gotten $1.99 of their money?
I've gotten their time. That's valuable.
Far more valuable than the $1.99. Thanks a lot, guys. I'm teasing, of course. I get plenty of your time. I appreciate you. I'm glad you guys are going into it, Zuber. We'll connect. We'll probably still be on when you're done with him if you want to hang on then. But what I found really interesting in kind of that eviction process was, again, she's now not scot-free. She's got to get up there and do $750 she's got to come up with. Now it's cheaper than the rent, but she's got to pay that to even file the appeal. How much do you love that? Like, do they do that in Washington?
So I want to answer a question really quick because
Please.
I'll forget. Melissa, if you go to WeTransfer.com, one word, WeTransfer.com, you can actually send the video to Matt to include in his boot camp. Sorry, I know the
yes,
answer.
No, I see.
Melissa,
congratulations. That's awesome. How can I share with the boot camp without putting it on YouTube? Nope. Perfect idea. Dion's right. You can WeTransfer to me. You can also, if you're in, I believe you're in the course, you can actually upload to the course and then Harry can figure out where he wants to put that. But we'll talk. I'll have an answer for you, Melissa. If you just send me an email, just to remind me, I'll forward it to Harry and we'll put it someplace for you. Because yeah, we want to see people documenting their process and watch them literally get better. So Dion, is Washington an eviction? I know you haven't done one, right?
So I haven't, but I have friends who have, and my brother has. So
yes.
I've experienced it. I've like literally held the hand of somebody, walked them through it. Their first rental, one of their first units. And in Washington, it depends on the county that you're in.
Okay.
King County is communist. Okay. It just is. The rest of the state is not.
Got it.
So I'm not saying that's good or bad. I'm just saying that's what it is.
Right.
And the person that went through the last eviction that I helped with was in a county called Thurston County, where she experienced a 14-day eviction.
Wow.
And that's because the way it is here is when you serve, you have to give, here's the resources. Here's the possible rent relief that you can go apply for. And these papers help you do that. You've been served, so now you qualify for their assistance. They immediately sent an email saying, we're not paying you, F off. So when the judge saw you provide information on how to get resources to pay the rent, they said, we're just not paying you. There's no extensions. There's no anything. It goes, that starts the 3-day pay or quit. Then 10 days, 14th day sheriff was on the doorstep.
Yeah. Say it, forget it, write it, regret it.
Right. Exactly.
So that's a general rule, but it definitely applies in landlord tenant. But what I think is interesting is, so again, she's going to have to pay $7, which I love about it, because she's at least going to have to put some of the money in the kitty that she's not going to get back. Even if she wins, she's still going to just get that deducted off of what her rent is. So the fact that they tie it to her actually having to provide income, dude, she's gone. She's not paying $750 to fight a losing case. I read her plea. In fact, this might be the first time this has ever been done on television, but let's do it. I'm going to actually read her response. This is the appeal that she filed. I actually kind of don't remember what it says, so this is a lot more dicey than than most people would think. I definitely don't remember what it said. Yeah, you might need to drink more.
Can't drink all day unless you start early.
It's true. Otherwise, you're just a quitter. So I kindly request the honorable court to please reconsider the judgment for the eviction hearing on X date. Every morning I have a medical appointment. Every morning she has a medical appointment. Everyone can fill in the blank on what they think that medical appointment might be. And it's this far away. Most of the days I'm home by 8. And she said, and on this day it ran late. And by the time I showed up, the hearing had concluded. There's no record of her showing up to the court. And I hung out at the court until about an hour and a half after the court opened. And there was no sign of her because I wanted to say, okay, let's go upstairs and let's do this thing and, get in front of the judge again. And because ideally I want to work something out with the tenant. Ideally, I'm not getting a summary judgment. I don't want that, because if I work out a deal with the tenant, I actually get the chance to work with them and create a schedule. Here's what you're going to pay over this amount of time. And in 4 weeks, you're out. I rather do that. I rather do that than have them evicted. I'm not trying to put an eviction on their record. However, if you want to poke the bear, I'm more than happy to oblige by biting you. My preference is to work something out with a tenant, have a constructive opportunity for them to walk out the door with their stuff in the appropriate timing. That's my preference. And so I'll actually wait around just to make sure it wasn't just a case of somebody being late. But anyway, I digress. Then she said the hearing had already concluded. And I'm not trying to contest the eviction. That's what she literally put in her appeal. I'm not trying to contest the eviction. I have applied for assistance and am looking for a new apartment. Sorry, her handwriting's awful and this is handwritten.
So if I could clarify really
please,
quick.
Go ahead.
Last count, 137 units. Has it changed?
No, still the same.
Okay. 137 units.
Yes.
Which, congratulations. Huge accomplishment.
Thank you.
How many, 22 years investing?
22 years. Yep.
22 years, 137 units.
Yeah.
How many evictions have you experienced?
9.
9. So 9. So we're talking 9 in 22 years on 137 units.
Yes.
This, while we're talking about it, the video is, do landlords suck? Should it be illegal? If we were doing an eviction every other month on 2 or 3 families, yeah, maybe the system would be broken. I've been investing for 12 years, have not experienced an eviction of my own. My brother has. He's got 10 units, decades of investing. I think he started in the 90s. My friend, bad luck, first rental, 1 eviction. It's like, oh, no bueno. It's not common.
No.
Right. And the idea is we want to work with the tenants. We don't buy to hope to go through evictions.
No,
that's not profitable.
No.
Right.
It's a horrible business model.
Right.
Because again, my 9 over 22 years with that unit count, it crushes. We have 4,000 tenant years to only have 9. I'm doing something better and different than 99% of the landlords out there. I won't say 100% because my humility stops me from saying 100%. However, with 4,000 tenant years, that volume count, that's a big number. Cody and Christian have 9 right now. There's a course you guys could take.
They're buying with the intent of cleaning up properties that aren't performing. Like
absolutely.
They're solving a problem for a seller who has to sell because they're not managing it right.
Agreed.
So that completely makes sense.
And that's the thing is for me is that those are a lot of times the assets I try and buy as well. I think the key to it is we go through a different process where likely and largely we don't have to evict them. We work with them in a transition plan. And sometimes that transition has to be tough love of an eviction. But I'll finish the rest of it. And it says, I just need a little more time. Meanwhile, this tenant has been asking for more time for 7 months. Like, I need a little more time. And no, what you need is to get a clue, an effing clue, and do the work. And since you can't do the work, I'm going to help you because I bet that you're motivated now that your option is homelessness, but that's on you. That's not on me. That's not on me. I've never fired anybody that didn't fire themselves first. Oh, Millennial Mike's available. Dion, you want to send him the link?
Yeah, sure.
Awesome. Well, Michael, I didn't know what your schedule was today. But if I know what your schedule was, and I sent you a couple of texts last night, you didn't respond back. But I'm not hurt. I don't have no axe to grind. But here's what the rest of what she said was.
I'm disappointed.
She goes, I just need a little more time. I am working with the town and the current rents the current rent with the state for past rent and fuel assistance. So none of this involves her having a job. None of this involves her having had a job. None of this involves her getting a job. None of it's a none of it's a none of it's a none of it's a. She's just looking, she's burning up the phone lines because that's the easier thing to do, looking for another handout. Rent's going to be due the next month too. That just gets you caught up. Rent's due next month too. And if you don't have a job, this is going to blow up. So then she said, my rent is $2,800. I was cut from a program early before I was expecting it, which was the emergency rental assistance program, which everyone was told this is month to month. It could go away at any time. She said, I hope for a reconsideration and hope for a short amount of time to be granted for me to find a new home. Again, she's been looking for 6 months. So we thank you for your time and consideration. So here's what we consistently see. Every single appeal I've ever read either reads like this or reads like they just got a significant case of eviction mold. Eviction mold, in case you aren't clear, is mold that shows up the day that eviction papers are served to a tenant. They will instantly find all the things wrong with the place that they've never documented, never called you about, because frankly, it didn't bother them. It wasn't a thing. But as soon as they get eviction papers served, now all of a sudden it's a thing. Well, guess what? Whatever. Like, we show that we have records. When people have called us, we say, yeah, we go over here. Your Honor, I have no text messages or messages in our service portal since July of last year. So clearly this only became an issue when I posted eviction papers. So I'm not trying to be cold and callous. This is just the way that it is. This is a business, and I don't have the ability to pay your rent for free. We're not that close. We're not that close. Thankfully, we're not dating. We've never been married. And so I don't feel the obligation to pay for your rent or for you to live there free. So for those of you who are landlords, be encouraged. This is what you can expect to see from a typical appeal. She'll have to pay $750 to file that appeal. Basically, she'll have to pay that in rent. And the question is will she put that good money after bad? Because she's not catching up on the $5,600 that she owes me for rent. It ain't going to happen. But it's going to be a write-off. She'll walk away. I'll rehab the unit, and then I'll get it rented for at least the same amount or more. And more importantly, I'll be rid of a tenant that can't survive unless she's on a handout program.
So one of the things an investor should do once they have rentals or a few rentals is look at it from the other person's perspective. Google how to appeal an eviction. See the ammunition that they're going to find on the internet that says, here's how you phrase it to have your best luck with the courts, so that you know what to be ready to combat with the response that you need based on what each person is going to say. Because Matt, you said it, they almost all look the same.
They do.
They're either finding an attorney, a county clerk who says, here's what you should say, because this is what's worked, or they Googled it and came up with verbiage that might work if you're not ready to respond.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Dion's preparation for that is exactly right. I know that Dion and I know specifically me, I've sat in court watching eviction attorneys. I picked the best one doing that because I was like, yep, that guy right there. That's Johnny Cochran right there. I want that guy representing me.
So it's a bit early for an overshare, but
please.
That's actually how I kept custody of my kids twice.
Yeah.
2 different divorces. I sat in court for 6 months and watched like what verbiage works, what one costs you custody, what strategy is actually going to help me spend good quality time with my kids. And it worked twice. If I get to the point where I think I'm going to start having a lot of evictions, I'll probably do the same thing to find an eviction attorney. Right now, I just have one recommended by other investors. But again, over a decade, I've not experienced one. So I don't think I ever had a decade where I didn't experience a divorce, though. But not today.
Not today. That's a good thing. Hey, what's up, Tamika? I'm so glad you made the live today. I know we're always talking past each other. Wanted to especially call you out. I know that you're buying your first fourplex. I know it has tenants. Congratulations. I know it's well below fair market value. First order of business is to raise rents. Current rent should be $1,395. Tenants pay under $1,000. 3 leases are up. Tamika, do yourself a favor. It's either in my course or it's on Dion's channel, but Dion's binder strategy is absolutely the best approach for having rents raised. It's the best way to do it. Watch that video once, then watch it again, then take notes, then watch it again. If you watch that video 3 times, you will put yourself in a position to get the absolute best scenario for yourself, which is not tenant turnover, getting the most out of the unit that you can that's reasonable. And worst case scenario is you can always push them out if you decide that you need to, because it doesn't make sense on the numbers. But watch, make sure you watch, and take care of watching Dion's video. That's the best thing you can best ever do on the binder strategy.
So Tamika, if you go to my channel, there's a lot of videos on the binder strategy because I've interviewed people who've used it successfully. There's two, one that's 5 minutes long and one that's 20 minutes long. The 20-minute long is broken down classroom format and actually talks about why you don't want to use the binder strategy right away. You want to wait about 2 months so that you can vet the tenants because you didn't get to run credit score, work history, eviction status on these tenants. So you want those 2 months to figure out if they're tenants you want to keep or not, and then use the binder strategy, which you can find just by going on YouTube and looking at binder strategy.
Yes. It's
Morning,
right.
Mike.
Mike,
Howdy.
what's up, buddy?
Oh, doing all right. Dion's wearing the shirt I should be wearing this morning because I was a little bit lost.
I can't see what Dion's shirt's wearing.
Matt, your nerd is no good here. You wouldn't know what it is anyway.
Shut up, Dion. I want to know what it is.
It's you remember the TV show Lost, Matt? It was real popular, like what, 2000?
Never watched it. Never watched it. Never watched it.
I wear this shirt every time I fly because people who fly that know the show is about a plane crash and TV show.
So that's from Lost, or it's from the show Lost.
Yeah.
Got it. Oh, never watched it.
Company or something like that.
Gotcha. I never watched the show ever. Ever. Never watched it. I was just like, the most exposure I got to the show Lost was by watching the movie This Is 40, where the girl obsesses over watching Lost. That's it.
Never heard of it.
Yeah. See, I didn't think you would. So Melissa, good morning. Hopefully that's helpful. Tamika, absolutely good. You're very welcome. Yeah. Dion stuff. So because of the great health event, I turned Dion's strategy into texting because I couldn't go in front of people because of my daughter Eliana being sick. And so when you have the ability, if you are local, do it that way. But the premise is still true. Don't try and do everything in the first text message. If you're doing it via text, you have to break it down into 4 very simple steps, which is engage, and then essentially notify, and then request, and then respond. That's essentially the process that I've done in text that has worked very well.
And if any of those tenants that you are that are in the property that you're acquiring, Tamika, if they're Section 8, you can use email with the housing authority. Works the same way.
Yes, exactly. Mike, what are you up to, buddy? Are you enjoying your vacation?
Yeah, my vacation. I spent the last day and a half doing nothing but taxes. When you file taxes in Illinois, Indiana, and the state of Washington, you have a W-2, you have rental income, you added a couple properties. I know this is nothing compared to you, Matt, but you added a couple properties, you got new depreciation schedules and things like that. Which I don't do the depreciation schedule, but I got to look up the information to send to my tax guy, track down a bunch of random information. And the other thing, this is the one that I hate the most. You know, when you get your mortgage disclosure at the end of the year, and all the information's on that thing, and it's like, here's the interest you paid, here's the insurance you paid, here's the real estate you paid. Well, when the freaking company you got your mortgage with sells your mortgage, and then the company sells it again, so you end up with 3 mortgage provider servicers on one loan in a single year. And I'm trying to track down, make electronic accounts to find them. It just pissed me off. So, anyways, that's what I was doing the last couple of days.
So this is not to poke at you, but that's why mine's easier. Truthfully, because I just add on the next and the next and the next and the next. And so it's one state. And because I'm with a small local bank, they don't sell the debt. So I don't ever have multiples for the same asset. Right. So totally agree with you. And I would go absolutely bonkers if that's what my tax life looked like. But doing it with a small local bank, number one. Number two is always in the same state. That makes my life infinitely easier because I just got introduced to having to do something in another state for taxes, because we hired somebody that lives in another state when their previous I was like, did you just move? He goes, yeah. I go, why? I go, now I got to do taxes for this other stupid state. And he goes, oh, I didn't think about that. Oh yeah. Oh, I was like, I have a unit vacant. You need to move into it. Cause he just rents an apartment. I was like, I know you're living with your girlfriend. You need to move into my other unit because you shouldn't be in that state. They're going to take, and they have an income tax and we don't have an income tax. So we had the conversation. She's like, you'll really do that for me? I go, I'm really doing it for us. I won't lie. I'm really doing it for us because I don't want to file another tax return in that other state. And you want to move back anyway. I'm just facilitating that and making that happen for you. Right. So I think that's probably the route that we're going to go. So
Mike, a little bit of advice as you get going through the years of this is have a thumb drive or, something saved in the cloud where you literally have a folder for each year with all of the mortgage information, taxes, insurance, all that kind of stuff. Because not only do you need it for taxes every time, but every time you start looking at your next lender, it's awesome to just go, share a file. You have everything. Everything's always in there. I don't have to go look up something new. Every time a mortgage is sold, because they'll be sold again sometimes 3 or 4 years later. That's the thing I wasn't expecting. I thought they sell right when 2 days after closing, you get a new one. I've had one time where they really messed up, didn't pay the taxes. They had to fix it. But have it all in one place, easy to access, from wherever. And then I want to make sure we get to John Texas's question. Yeah, go for it. So do you have any pros and cons about using hard money for financing? The cons are it's super expensive. The pros are it's a paperwork heavy process in the beginning. But as you get comfortable with those hard money folks, it will work for you because then you can get money pretty quickly. Like if I saw a project that came up that I was just convinced that it was the greatest deal ever, I could have $5 million tomorrow, or not tomorrow, but probably next week. The issue is that I haven't seen any deal that's ever been that good. And so I've always gone more the conventional route of talking to a smaller local bank and then getting a construction loan is what I've done in the past. Or going the opportunity of 30-year fixed rate debt with a DSCR loan, even though that's more expensive, I more likely would do that approach than hard money. It really depends on, I would love to know more about the scenario of why the only option is hard money. Cause I think hard money is truly the absolute last resort. And it has to be such an amazing deal because the cost of it is extremely expensive. I mean, 12, 13, 14%, and then a big chunk of profits and then points at closing. It's a lot of money. My issue with hard money isn't so much the expense. It is expensive. So if you have a deal that justifies the expense, then you have a deal that makes it worth it. My problem would be timeline. Hard money has a set timeline where, 6 months, 9 months, a year, interest rate can double, or you can have to pay whatever the fee is to renegotiate the hard debt, the hard money. And so that's the biggest problem for me is timeline. Like Mike in the last, little over 6 months now did 2 burrs. You didn't use hard money, right? You didn't use money you had to have on a timeline.
Right. So, I mean, hard money, like I think it was Matt that just said, it was a last resort. If you have access to a HELOC, a home equity line of credit, it's extremely preferable. So my home equity line of credit, when I took it out, when I started it and they issued me a line of credit, it was at the prime rate plus 1%. So I had like a 3% interest rate payment on my home equity line of credit, and I could choose to make interest only payments. So it's even cheaper than doing interest and principal, right? Interest only payments at like 3%. And so it was a really good deal. The money was really cheap. And now as the Fed shifted interest rates, which sucked, the tectonic plates kind of shifting around you, the interest rate went from me paying like 3 to me paying like 6. My payments doubled, but still it's way less than hard money. It doesn't even come close to what it would cost to do hard money. I'm not paying any points. Right. I'm not nothing at all. I'm just sitting there making interest only payments to my HELOC. And then when I was able to do the cash out on the back end of the burst strategy, I took the property and did the cash out refinance. I got all my money back, paid the HELOC down to 0, and ended up with extra money on the back end. I actually did 2 videos on that, John. So if you want to watch those, they're on my channel, all the numbers, everything, the timeline, everything right there.
Yeah, John, the other thing too, real quickly, BF makes a good point. Hard money is for people who can't prove the income cash, can't prove the income cash business. Really what that means is it's really when, there are really very few scenarios where hard money makes sense. There's always better ways to find access to capital. especially if you have a proven track record, especially if you have other assets that are paying. There's just better ways. I would much rather go with an expensive DSCR loan, because then you know that you're at least in it and you're locked in it. And then you've got great, 30-year debt, and it might be great 30-year debt that's expensive, but there's not all this craziness of, 2 points at closing and 2 points here and a point here, and then 12% money. And it's like, listen, those rates are crazy high, and they're also risk calculated, and they're risk balanced. So I'm not a huge fan of that. Let's see. Ninja Vanish, I want to answer this question for you. So do you guys escrow accounts for taxes and insurance? I would imagine you do, because it's easier to monitor cash flow and rents. So I will escrow taxes. I pay insurance off in full. The reason I do that is because insurance companies take credit cards, and I take the $85,000 worth of points that I get. And then I can easily pay it off. And I take another account, and I basically take the money that the tax or what's going to be owed for insurance, and I have it pushed off to a separate account. And so then when I need to pay that insurance policy, I put it on my credit card, I get all the points, and then I use the account to pay off the card. So I paid 0 interest. You guys?
I thought I was the only one who did that for the cashback, but I don't get the points. So
high five. High five. Nice job.
Yeah, I've never thought about that, I guess. So for me, all of my taxes and insurance that are wrapped up in regular mortgages, because I'm still under my 10 traditional mortgages, it's just included in the mortgage payment. I've never bothered to check and see if the bank or the lender will just allow me to directly.
Yeah, so you have a choice no matter what on anything to escrow or to not escrow.
Yes.
You have to have a binder submitted. You know that you have your insurance binder submitted to the lender so that they know their insurance is in place, and
Right.
that they're listed so that if you ever canceled insurance, they would be notified.
Right.
But they don't have to be the one to pay it. I've actually had some where they tried to, and I said I paid it. So I actually got reimbursed from escrow. So I paid the insurance because I want the cash back on the credit card.
Mm-hmm.
The lender pays the insurance.
Mm-hmm.
I get reimbursed from the insurance that amount. And so for that year, I paid into escrow for my insurance, but I had already been given the cash from the insurance company. But yeah, you have that option. And all mine are less than 10 mortgages, Fannie Freddie backed in my name. So you have that option now. It's a little extra work, and when you're lazy, but you start adding up $5,000-$6,000 a year with cash back,
I'll take it.
An extra meal.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the $85,000 on my card pays for my trips to Vegas for the family 3 times. Right. So it's like, we'll continue to do that. And yeah, BF, you got it right. It's not the taxes that we pay. It's the property taxes associated with the asset. So that's what we're talking about there. Hires telling me I'm young enough to money for, okay, wait a second. So Bajan, again, always correct me if I'm not using your name. Bajan Sonic, if I'm not pronouncing it right, is an FHA loan good for my first deal? I will be house hacking. You can, and so I like FHA. I think Dion and I differ a little bit because of how we would calculate, but I like the 3.5% down.
Conventional will only be 3% down, right?
Correct. So
that's the part that most people miss.
Correct. If you can get that, because what you have to do is you have to shop. So the caveat that I'll give you is, yes, FHA, largely people know far more about FHA than they know about your ability to get a 3% down or even a 5% down conventional on a multifamily asset, because then it has to do it has to pass sustainability, which is another gate that you have on the conventional side that you don't have on the FHA side. So what I will tell you is the most important thing you can do is hook up with the right mortgage broker. I can tell you that I think all of us have had experience with Matt, the mortgage guy. And if he's not the guy, because you don't do it in California, but he's got a network of people that understand the right asset or the right loan class of what you should be looking for, you should be having that conversation with them. I would look at the 3% conventional, the 3.5% FHA, and the 5% conventional. Just know on the 3 and the 5 on the conventional side that it has to pass what's called sustainability, which is basically counting 75% of the rents. and those actually passing what would be your mortgage payment. That's what the sustainability study is. And you can Google sustainability on a conventional loan, and it will give you that walkthrough. But I would believe any of Matt, the mortgage guys, people, which is U Mortgage, I believe any of those guys know what those sustainability metrics are.
So the 5% down to pass the sustainability is on a duplex. On a single family house or a house with an ADU doesn't come into play. You can do 3% down as long as you haven't owned a property in the last 3 years. The reason FHA might work better for you is if you want a triplex or a fourplex, the down payment stays 3.5%. That's the time you win with an FHA loan.
That's right.
FHA is not designed for first-time home buyers. People get confused because it has an F and an H in it. They think it says first-time home buyer. That's Federal Housing Authority. It's designed for people who have bad credit and bad debt to income. If those are the two things that you have, FHA is probably going to be the better loan. Might be the only loan option, but conventional is almost always better for single family, house with an ADU, or if it qualifies, a duplex. To get that, both Mike and myself have used conventional 5% down on our first duplexes. And like Tamika asked the question here, I haven't read it all, but just if I use my VA eligibility, I've never touched it. I've never used VA. I might, it's in my back pocket, but I've not used it ever because conventional 5% down was a route I wanted to go on that first duplex. FHA is harder to get accepted. Most sellers will look at VA or FHA and say more hoops for the seller to jump through. It's got to be live-in ready and some other things. The perception is it's harder to get accepted. So you might get another offer, a conventional offer accepted over top of yours. So if you have bad credit, bad debt to income ratio, and you're going for a triplex or fourplex, FHA. Go ahead.
I was just going to say real quickly, they do go up to 4 units now on that sustainability. So it's one thing to keep in mind if you're going small multifamily. But yeah, everything Dion said is absolutely correct. But the good news is you're working with U Mortgage, somebody from Matt's team that he trained where they have that process. They know about all those loan products. Those are the people that you have to know because they'll legislation and rules change on those as banks tighten lending standards. Those rules will change. When those rules do change, that's one of the things to keep in mind. Dion, go ahead.
I have one more thing, but I want Mike to go first.
Okay.
I was going to say the VA loan is still a good loan for house hacking. Marina just closed on her duplex December of last year with a VA. It was 3.5% down, and she had almost no closing costs because the VA does a really good job. And then she was able to negotiate the seller to pay all of her closing costs. So I'm pretty sure. I think she might have paid out of pocket just a little bit of money for like the inspection, the appraisal, and stuff like that. So it was still a viable deal, and she kicked butt with it.
The last thing to consider with FHA versus conventional for Bahan is your mortgage insurance, which isn't the deal breaker. It might not even be that expensive. So find out how much it's going to be based on the deal you're looking at. With FHA, exists for the length of the loan. The only way to get rid of mortgage insurance is to pay off the loan, refinance, or sell the property. Yeah. With conventional, anytime we put less than 20% down, you're going to get mortgage insurance. But as soon as your equity position hits 22%, mortgage insurance goes away automatically. They say automatically, but you want to reach out to your lender and say, it's time for that to go away.
Yep. Yeah. There's again, get with a mortgage person, get with one that you can, even if you just take this part of this and watch this a few times, you'll know all the questions to ask them to put yourself in the best position to get the best type of loan for the property. Because again, the idea is not use it and then refi 3 years later and refi 3 years later, because then you're just kicking the can down the road, 3 years down the road, 3 years down the road. Try and get into one that is the best. Do the shopping, do the work, have the conversations, get into the best loan product in the beginning you can possibly get into. And then you might never have to refinance again. It's possible. I have a couple of loans that I've not refied in 15 years. So the cool news is I'm paying down a ton of principal balance. I have a $600,000 property. I think I owe like 135 grand on. I'm not going to refinance that. I'm not going to refinance it and pull cash out. I'll probably pay that one down to 0, continuing with my payments, but the debt's at like 6. Now it's not a deal now. It could have been a deal then, but I had some projects going on. So I said, you know what, we'll just let that one sit there and that's fine. And we'll pay it down because we're grinding into the principle of it so much. And then I saw we've got a super chat from, I think people say Glover, but I believe it's probably G Lover. so I don't know, but you correct me if I'm wrong.
Message me on Instagram all the time. It's Glover.
It's Glover. Okay. Well, see, I was trying to give you credit, Glover. I thought it was G Glover. But do you guys have any experience putting your properties in a trust? Mike, or yours aren't in a trust, right, Mike?
Nope, they're all just personally owned by me.
Dion?
I trust myself.
Yeah.
So the purpose of a trust is to help your beneficiaries. And what have my kids ever done for me?
So mine are in a trust. And the reason why is because if you buy in an LLC, it doesn't give you the protection that you think you have. Watch Dion's rants on those because they're quite priceless. I usually sit back and relax. And it's one of the very few times I do. Dion's handling this. He's getting it handled. But in a trust, it doesn't affect the cost of my borrowing. I still generally have a layer of protection because I have the insurance fire policy on the property asset itself, as well as an umbrella for the trust. So that way, everything really should serve itself within the trust. If a bus hits me tomorrow, Ashley takes over. If a bus hits both of us at the same time, it's just the kids, then all of the assets are in the trust. And then we just have a trustee that actually then manages the trust that will then provide income for our kids for, until they're in a position where they can take care of themselves. And if you ask my 1-year-old, that should be sometime next year. So that's what I think, that's the structure that we all have, but that's what I like with the trust, is that everything's built into, if anything ever happened to us, the kids are taken care of.
So my goal is to put it in a trust. My brother put his in a trust last year or the year before. It's like $2,500, maybe $3,000 with a portfolio of our size. With the bigger portfolio, it might have been more money to do that. It's worth doing it for your kids. It can have an impact. But I've said this before, and I kind of get attacked in the comments. I am not investing to create generational wealth. The Fords and the Rockefellers, 3 generations in, their family members are broke. Giving somebody a big glump of money isn't going to help them. My goal is to not become a financial burden to my kids when I'm too old where I couldn't work if I needed to. So that was why I invest. The trust will make the transition easier. Yeah, probate's not fun if you don't have a trust. But my kids aren't even showing any interest in real estate. So it isn't going to help them. They're not going to step up and go, okay, I've ignored my dad for the last 40 years. He finally died. Now I'm going to take over his real estate portfolio, because they won't have a clue. If they start getting close to that, yeah, form a trust, make a board, put them on it, but we're not there.
Yes. Oh, this is Cody and Christian. Oh, did you guys send them the link? They're able to jump on.
They're jumping in.
They're jumping in. Oh my word. This is going to be a fivesome.
Blast the joint up a little bit.
Dude, this is a lumberjack-gasm. If there was such a thing.
I sent it to the Cody and Christian email. So not to either one of theirs. I sent it to them. Hopefully they will see that.
Well, on Dion's point, though, about leaving money to your kids, I encourage everybody to read this book, The Millionaire Next Door. If you've never read it before, it's an amazing book, and it will explain to you how absolutely detrimental it is when you leave money to your kids or when they're expecting a lot of money. I mean, there's just so many studies that show it's the worst thing you can do for your children and your grandchildren is to leave them money instead of teach them how to make it on their own, because they just grow up never needing to develop the skills to earn money and to be a good steward over money. And that's why by the 3rd generation after wealth has been created, it's like 95% of the time by that 3rd generation, it's completely gone. And that just goes back to the saying that, strong men create good times create weak men create bad times. By the time it gets all the way to that 3rd generation, it's just wiped out. And then you get somebody new who's broke, who has to learn how to make the money again. So
true story. And
I don't want to leave money to my kid. I feel like it's irresponsible.
I agree. I think you should leave your money to me. I'll do more with it. I promise.
You're going to outlive me, Matt?
Dude, I've got enough money where I can be a part robot.
Robocop. That's what I'm going for.
You're almost old enough to be Mike's dad. Almost.
It's true. It's true.
Dion. I think you are.
Absolutely. My son is the same age as you. So yeah, there's factually evidence.
Yes.
I assume he's my son, but 7 DNA tests might be wrong.
Like in some parts of Indiana, I'm old enough to be his grandpa. Adrian Moore, I want to welcome you to the channel, Adrian. I've never seen you ask a question before, and I completely agree with you. I'm not sure if you saw my opening, but that's something that I basically spoke to, which is most landlords I see now are not private owners. It took 90 days to find a landlord that was not owned by a Wall Street firm. By the way, those landlords suck. You are 100% correct. And I call it Operation Cash Extraction. It is Operation Cash Extraction when you move into a corporately owned building because they don't care. They don't want the conversation. They have attorneys for days. They will take you to court. They will squeeze you for every nickel. And you can even ask Captain Goofball, Reventure Consulting, because he got a $3,100 bill when he moved out of his apartment because landlords suck. Hey, corporate ones, they do. And if you know better, you should never rent from them. The challenge is in many cities and large multifamily, that's the only thing you're going to get as a corporate landlord. That's why the mom and pop landlord will always live, because we do things, we give better service for less money with just as good of a product. That's what the difference is.
One of the most common phrases that comes in whenever I list a unit on apartments.com, when I used to, and now Hemlane, and even on the last two on Hemlane last year.
Yeah.
You don't have a property manager? How do we get to the top of your list? They want to rent from somebody that's not just going to go, here's the rules, here's exactly how it has to go. Uh-oh.
Oh, here they are.
Oh, no. It's happened.
My word.
Now it's a live stream.
Melissa Molina, you know that I was joking. I was just joking about Indiana. The reason I said Indiana specifically is because that's the state where Mike owns property where none of us do.
Almost did. Almost
true. True.
Me and
Yeah.
Mike almost went in on a deal together.
I know. Just saying, one of these days.
I'm still going to get Dion. I'm just making sure that if I get him, it's on the best deal I can find,
Heck yeah. Well, I mean, and only if you're like willing to send him reports that he's not going to read because it goes outside of his 2 hours a month.
That is true. I don't have to worry about them being very specific. Just how was it this week? One sheet of paper that says things went good.
Yeah, it was like, it was
Date
good.
on it.
Didn't suck. Right.
So Christian and Cody, how are you guys?
We're doing well.
Doing good. Sending a wire to a contractor, so about to be more broke than I was.
Hey, we got money from a cash out refi today, though, so we're less broke than we woke up.
And we just got our appraisal back in about 10 minutes ago. The
Yeah.
asset we bought for $2 million just appraised for 3.5.
Oh,
And we've already pulled out all the money before, so we're gonna pull out another little bit, bring it to sewer. Once it's on sewer, take it to agency, non-recourse debt, and then hands off.
that's that debt hammer you were talking about, or is that just the mortgage hammer you're talking about? Like the
So with
So
the
walk me
agency,
through
yeah. So with the agency loan product on commercial, we can get 10-year, because we're low leverage, we can get 10-year fixed rate, interest only commercial debt,
awesome.
non-recourse. So if it went sideways, doesn't matter so much as it won't tank the rest of the portfolio. So we have to put it on sewer because it's on septic. And septic for 38 units is kind of gross anyways, but
Yeah, it
once
is.
it's on sewer, we can hook it up to, or we can then refinance it non-recourse. And we actually unencumbered a whole land lot in this process for the refi. So now we have free and clear land.
So
They won't refinance if it's on septic.
Not with an agency loan.
Okay.
So I love that move. That is by far my favorite deal I ever did. Was I bought a lot that had a 3-unit, a 4-unit, a bungalow, and a single family house.
Yeah.
I spent $7,000 getting the single family house basically pulled away from the other 3 buildings. Then I refi the other 3 buildings and I showed them how I had my debt coverage in those other 3 buildings. And I had them discharge the mortgage on the single family house. So I got the single family house free of charge.
That's legit.
But my favorite part was after I did that, I then got a mortgage on that single family house to lever it up. So I basically separated it from the lot just so I could lever the 250K on it. So then I levered the 250K and I used that to buy 2 more duplexes that make about $3,000 a month between the 2 of them. Plus I make a single family house.
We're going to work on throwing storage up in the very back.
I love that. I love
And
that.
because we'll have it free and clear, just put some storage units back there. It should be able to make about $3,000 a month.
That's awesome.
And
love
on a free and
storage.
clear lot, that's just nice to have cash flow.
Totally agree.
We wanted to build multifamily back there, but the city's requirement was, well, you need to buy the land from your neighbor, Hayden Homes. Then you need to build a road through that land and
Yeah.
connect to their roads. I'm like, well, that's a lot of time, money, and effort.
Yeah, and you can count on road. I don't know where it costs where you guys are, but linear feet of road, when you look at this is where we go down to one person that's watching this and actually cares about this. But when you actually put road in, you're looking at usually about $800 a linear foot when you're looking at, depending on the town, because you have to look at curbing, you have to look at underground utilities, you have to look at a specific pavement spec. I went down that road. I looked at some land and I was like, I'm going to develop this land. And then I went through the process. I literally just got the road quoted and it was like $800 to $900 a linear foot for the road. And I was just like, well, at this point, I'm just buying this to give it to you guys. So I'm just not going to buy it because I don't want to give you the land. Because yeah, $800 or $900, it was a 700-foot road. It was going to cost me, $650,000 to put the road in for like 14 units. And I was like, that is just some horrible math. Cause then I had to pay all the impact fees of all the units. So I literally showed the city how they were going to basically, how I was going to have a road with utilities and hooking up to septic and water. And I was going to have spent $1 million. And I still haven't moved literally a spoonful of dirt yet. And they're like, yeah, I don't understand. What's the problem? Here's the problem. Who makes money doing this? I can't.
The city does.
What's that?
The city does.
The city, yeah, the city does. Yeah, exactly. The city would owe me big time. Real quickly, Adrian Moore. I joined late. Okay, cool. I came here from Uneducated Economist channel. Very cool to have you. And yes, those landlords have attorneys for days. Yeah, that's the problem. And so Cody and Christian, what we were talking about there, I'm not sure if you guys were watching the live stream at that point, was just corporate landlords, Wall Street guys, and how, anytime you move out of one of those types of units, you're going to owe money. Like your deposit's gone. You're going to be writing a check. Just get used to that. And I know that for us, we return over 90% of our tenants' deposits. So
Yeah, we don't like to keep deposits. It's not our money anyway. Just
exactly.
take care of the unit.
Do you guys watch any numbers like that? Do you guys look and see what return you get or the percentage of which you return deposits to tenants?
We have only been partnered for, less than 2 years.
Okay.
So we haven't had a whole lot of turnover. People like to stay with us because we renovate our stuff.
Sure.
So I don't have a metric for that.
Yeah. It's
We
a
had
metric.
one or two units though that were trashed, where it's like, okay, we have to. We had a few people who were non-pays who we post pay and vacates for. They were kind enough to just go like, okay, well, free ride's over, and they left. But they left a lot of their stuff and they trashed everything. So like we've had one or two of those. But other than that, I think everyone's pretty much just, they come in, they get their security deposit back. If it's little cosmetic stuff,
yeah,
we just cover it, turn the unit, and away we go.
Exactly. Do you guys, I don't know what the law is where you guys live, and Mike, you can weigh in on your state, but also on Indiana if you know it. After the tenant leaves, they leave some stuff behind. What do you guys, how many days before it's considered abandoned? Is it like a 7-day, a 30-day?
60, you have to store it.
You have to store it for how long?
I've found that in Central Washington, we have to store it for 60 days.
Oh, dear God.
But
for our tenant that has life in prison, I don't think he's going to come back for it.
yeah, the amount of times we've stored their stuff for 60 days, I've got to say, is lower than I want to say on this call.
I got you. Well, so in New Hampshire, it's 7 days, but then it becomes our property. And when you guys have the volume of properties that you guys have, you can find a vendor that will actually come in and price out everything. And then they'll either give you a number and say, I'll give you $300, but they take everything and they sell it. Or in some cases where I bought an estate and they left everything in there, I actually brought somebody and said, hey, do your estate sale and I'll give you a 30-70 split or a 40-60 split. And all you do is you go in there, you market everything, and you've got 2 weeks to do everything. And that's actually worked out really well. It's a nice little revenue stream. Because after that 7 days, it's done, and it's going to take me a few weeks to get through the place and do all the stuff I want to do anyway, but it's a way to monetize. And when it's all said and done, I've walked away with $300 or $400 or $500, I've also walked away with a few $1,000s, like from the estate type of option. So long as you're at 7 days, that's all that matters. So that's New Hampshire anyway. Mike, do you know how Indiana works in that regard?
I mean, maybe we have one of these. I've never even had to have this conversation with property manager. We have evicted a couple people, and I've never had somebody who moved out who didn't just take all their stuff with them. So the only tenants that I've had just move out took their crap. So
lucky.
Wow.
You know, landlords in Indiana, fantastic tenant base, no problems. Gary's great.
Hey, you guys are the ones with a tenant who's doing a life sentence. All right. My guy just got put on house arrest with an ankle bracelet. So you can't talk to me.
We inherited him, but we decided to buy all the worst properties in Moses on purpose. We bought the best properties, and we've done some of that too. We've never heard from them.
Dion, you've only had like 4 turnovers, and so you never had this stuff, right?
No, one passed away, so he went to the hospital, passed away. So that I did store the stuff. Family.
The delineation that every landlord in the world makes. He went somewhere else.
Yes, it didn't happen here. It didn't happen on site. The other ones, I think everyone's always gotten their full deposit back. So
yeah.
Yeah, Dion's world must be nice. What's the turnover?
Well, that's why whenever it comes up, like if you want to talk about investing in a distance, I talk about Millennial Mike. If you want to talk about how do you deal with tenant turnover, I go to Zuber or Matt, who have enough units to say they have so many units, they've dealt with turnover, they have the strategies. I have no idea. Like I have to reach out to them and go, what would you do? Right. Because I've just hardly ever deal with it.
Yeah.
Like you guys, you renovate, you've only been doing it a few years. We don't have the experience to be turnover experts. So we should be reaching out to the people who've been doing that. And it's kind of a unit count base. If I had 100+ units, I'd have more turnover. Like just math would make it a thing.
Yeah. The mathematics starts to get involved. But the other thing too is like our renewal rates, 93%. Well, on 137 units, that means I have 12 units that are going to come available every year. But the bigger issue is acquisition of an asset where you have inherited tenants. That's the bigger issue, because right now we're going to do more evictions and more tenant turnover this year than we've ever done in 5 years, just because we acquired a number of assets where people are jumping. BF asks Cody and Christian, how many doors do you guys own? Is it 119?
110, about to be 122, plus the resort.
Nice.
Yeah. I don't know what you count. What do you guys think we count the resort as? We've been back and forth on this. Like it's a resort, but it's also like Dion and Mike, you guys have been there. Did those count as units?
When it was the resort and it was just wedding venue only and only 2 times a week that they could do anything, I would have said they have a resort. You guys incorporating the triplex and Airbnb model, that's 23 at least units.
Yeah.
I'd count them as units. Heck yeah.
All right, I've got 133 units.
Wow. Our numbers are looking way better.
Yeah.
Been blessed by Dion and Mike.
Hey, speaking of the resort, you guys are having an event out there. I've heard someone might have posted that somewhere. Are you guys? How many people are you expecting to show up?
This one should be pretty full. This we haven't spent as much time as we usually would marketing. We usually get like the 2 weeks before, so we're gonna start marketing right now. But I think we already have 20 something people. So I think we could fit 60 in that room. It's gonna be a packed house.
That's a tight room.
What are the odds we look around for a venue close to the Robin Hood where we host the 100 who would show up? Just, I mean, random kind of thought, not pressure. Just maybe not this event, maybe the next event or something. But
yeah, we got a neighboring resort that can. They have rooms for up to 120 and then a room up to 250. Though I would not try to fit 250 people in that room. But realistically, 200. However, we're entering the summer, so for future events, we have
those events we can get Matt to come to.
Yeah, we should peer pressure into this one.
Guys, 3 kids, 5 and under. I want to come back and still be married.
Well, we're talking about midweek in June, possibly doing a big one where we actually book out the resort and take the lawn with the wedding tent, and that should get us closer to probably 150 people.
Right.
And I think we can probably negotiate that Matt gets the big house with the 3 bedroom. We have 3 bunk beds. Your kids are taken care of.
I don't mind the floor. I'm easy. Yeah, I'm about as easy as it gets. But yeah, I see Matt, Bob and BF going back and forth. So just to be clear, I own in a trust, and the only LLC that I have is for the purposes of getting healthcare and giving the employees I hired health care.
If I could,
please
really
go
quick.
you're the LLC guy. You know more about my LLC.
BF and Matt, you're both right.
Yeah.
Right.
Matt Bob,
Whether
not Matt May.
Matt Bob, right, Matt Bob. So whether you want to have an LLC or not, you're absolutely both right. The concern is that new person who doesn't own any rentals thinking they need to have an LLC that puts all kinds of barriers in front of them that stops them from ever starting investing. That's where the LLC argument falls apart for me.
Yeah. And there are states that still respect the sovereignty of LLCs. There are a number of states that don't respect them at all. And I can tell you, I'm thinking about it. I've got this attorney that's going to be in my course. And then I'm thinking about I might release that one to the public. The challenge is she's going to cover a lot of things in there. And one of the things is she had her law firm in an LLC. Think about how brazen this is. She had a law firm in an LLC. She got sued. They pierced the veil of her LLC that managed her, that is her law firm. And then they individually sued her, and they were trying to get her house from her. I mean, for me, and this is why I talk to my attorneys. I have 9 of them. I talk to all of my attorneys. I'm just like LLC or non-LLC. So I like to get their feedback. And so again, for me, I have mine in a trust, based on my family structure, and the fact that I've got young kids. And so I've got mine in a trust, but then the only reason I opened up the LLC was to take care of my employees. I asked them if they wanted healthcare. I said, do you want healthcare or do you want to get paid more money? They said they wanted healthcare. I said, you got it. Healthcare it is. Healthcare for everybody. Well, at least for my guys. But that's the only reason that I did that. And then Terry, good morning, Terry Ballo.
I got a question for Cody and Christian.
Go for it.
So they got the #1 Bigger Pockets podcast recently on Ken McElroy. When do you guys get on Grant Cardone? When does that happen?
I've connected with Grant before, had our little one-on-one conversation in the past, and I got my takeaways. I'm good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He told us we're welcome to be on his channel as long as we pay him $10,000.
That sounds like
sounds right.
That.
Oh, we are doing this wrong.
I asked his team, they're like, we can definitely make that happen for 10K. I was like, well, I don't want it that bad.
That's funny.
It's amazing that they're obviously, for some people that number works, monetizing that way. For some people that number would probably work. I just can't jump up and down on stage with all those other people. Like, I'd be like, dude, this is way too much. I need to break. So you guys did their conference? I know that you guys go there to really, have conversations with a lot of folks. Cause one of the things that you find there is a lot of investors that are looking for more and new and different ways. And that's something I really appreciate about you guys is always that pursuit of knowledge. So what was kind of your biggest takeaway from that event?
Well, from that event, we have our 35 principles outlined on YouTube and in our course. But most of the uber successful people there, the 9 and 10 figure players, have very similar, if not identical, principles. Yeah. So it was more validating than anything. It's not like I got a whole lot of brand new info.
Yeah, sure.
But just to see the practical application of people taking it to that level is great.
The good news is even if you weren't as successful as you are with inflation, you'll be there in like 15 years anyway.
What do you think about that? It's like rent doubles every 10 to 15 years in Grant County.
Yeah.
And even if it was 15 years, I've got another 4 of those cycles.
Exactly.
Like rent goes from 1,000 to 2,000 to 4,000 to 8,000, and it's kind of ridiculous.
It is when you look at when you apply multipliers. I mean, what's not fun is going through the adjustment that I think we're going to go through in the next 12 to 24 months. that adjustment won't be the best and the most fun, but it will also be fun from a different when you're looking at value or your asset value on paper, which quite frankly, I only do once a year when I have to fill out my PFS. That's something that you guys are going to have to start doing, I think, with your banks, is you'll have to start sending them a PFS every year, which is, total pain in the nuts. And it's the only time that you look at values of things, because that's the only time it matters, is when you're filling out the king's paperwork so you can get your next loan. It's the only time it matters. Dion had to do his PFS. First, he had to ask me what it was. And then
I need to grow up. Tell me how.
Yeah.
We update ours quarterly because we buy a couple properties a quarter.
Sure.
So we have to. But that makes it easier for your end.
Yes. Is that ever anything that you guys are providing any of the sellers of the assets? Did they ever ask you? I know that mostly it's no, but is it still remained no?
We usually we should usually share our schedule of real estate.
Gotcha.
So the SREO, schedule of real estate owned, which for anyone on the channel who doesn't know, it's basically just a list of here's all the properties we own and where we stand with them. Here's the debt, here's the cash flows. This is what our real estate does.
We had to do that for the housing authority deal.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's for those of you who don't know basically what they're doing there, that's your credibility statement. Here's my black and white. Here's why I'm the man. And again, I'm very clear in the video where I created a product for a bank. That wasn't year 2. That was year 17 or 18, because it was a credibility statement. It was, here's why we need this product. Here's the assets I own. Here's how this betters the bank. Here's how this is an asset or a product that the market will then start consuming, because not any other banks have a product like this. And so that credibility statement, that's why it's important when that you be an operator and have the data and the information in one place, where you can basically at any time engage on that level, where you can show them, here's my credibility statement in black and white. And that's always based on numbers. Cody and Christian, would you guys add anything to that?
No, that pretty much sums it up. It's like, hey, this is what we've done. Sometimes people ask for proof of funds. And if you guys know our strategy, we never have funds. We just started. So if we have money, it goes into buying real estate. We don't hold dollars. So whenever anyone asks for proof of funds, that's just usually what we send them is.
Here you go. Look at our real estate.
Yeah. Do you think we're going to lose the asset? Here's what we hold right now. And here's our LTVs sitting around, you can look at that and be like, wow, based on this cash flow, these values, these guys are sitting at like sub 60 loan to value. Right. So is this going to be the deal that breaks it? Probably not.
We crushed sub 60. We're at 59.5.
Crushed it.
So one of the things that you guys will see in the next 2 years likely is compression of that. However, you still have the asset, even if it's only 75%, you still have the asset that they can lever if need be, that still puts you in a decent spot. Because that's one of the things that you see in a down cycle. In those down cycles, you will see that compress. There's just no two ways around it. At the end of the day, though, it really still remains strongly about the cash flow. And that's where your guys' strategy is really smart, is that cash flow is the most important thing in large multifamily. It's the most important thing by far. Go ahead.
And we're pushing all of our 5-year debts to 10-year products right now. So the 38 flex are refinancing. Granted, we'll probably refinance it in year 3 to some other better product, but it's a 10-year fix, which is more better.
Yeah, true story. Well, that's the other thing too, is, I like that time horizon because it gives you time to wait for the opportunity in the market where you can make that turn, right? So it might be 3 years, it might be 5, it might be 6, you never know. But sometime in that 10-year period, you're going to get a better deal sometime in that 10-year period. So that's why I like 10. And that's why Dave Ramsey blew up with his 1 year and 90-day debt. And that's why a lot of operators blow up with 2-year debt or bridge debt is what it's called. But that's why a lot of people blow up with that, is because they're forced to refi at a time when they usually can't. And then it's just a cascade of things that collapse. Dion, go ahead.
So Cody and Christian, the topic of this video, landlords suck, it should be illegal. This is a response to every time a Business Insider article comes out on any one of us, the comments go thousands deep on the sometimes creative ways they would like to see us dead.
Yes.
Yeah.
What is your response when you see that?
You and me both.
Well, I troll a lot of those. There's a lack of understanding, to say the least. But yeah, I don't know. We only spend $1 million a year to renovate stuff, so we shouldn't be allowed to own real estate. We should give it back to the slumlords.
Exactly. Yeah, I think you guys hit the nail on the head. I mean, yeah, I'm a 7-year-old when it comes to those boards with a decent vocabulary, so I have no problem answering back. P.S. Your rent's late. But
yeah, rent's due.
Yeah, exactly. But the interesting thing is that, you know, I think that to your point, Cody, we're buying assets that are often, you know, in horrible shape. There's value add there. And so we are creating more jobs than most because you have to have contractors doing that work. We're creating that turnkey rental for somebody that just wants a nice, clean place. Maybe it's beautiful, maybe it's not, but it certainly is going to be clean and modernized and everything's going to work. And that beats the hell out of what it used to be. And very often then, you know, the thing that I always argue with our housing authority over is, you know, the unit that they want, they can't afford and you won't pay for. The unit that they have, they're unhappy with, but it's all that they can afford. You tell me how you'd like this to go. I'm more than happy to take the unit back. More than happy to. I'll take the unit back and then I will do a $10,000 rehab and then I will put the rent up $500 and then it's no longer something that housing can afford. There, you got your wish. Now you're homeless.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to be able to stay there. The numbers don't carry and you're not willing to get a job that gives me 3x income. You're on a program.
People are accustomed to it being a right, not a luxury, and not everybody on this planet has housing. And it is a service that you have to pay for if you want a quality of life. And that's hard for people to swallow, but I still rent and I spend way too much on rent.
Yeah.
But it gets me close to where I want to live. I'm 2 blocks from Christian and right next to the grocery store. Like there's a quality of life that I have to pay for. It's not free.
And I still don't qualify for a home loan.
Well, I don't either. But...
Yeah. So
yeah.
Well, the thing I think is funny is the Constitution says we all have rights to own guns. It doesn't say we have rights to housing.
Right.
And everybody wants the government to give you a house.
And take your gun.
I'll even listen to that argument as soon as the government gives everyone a gun. Because that's not how rights work.
Well, I'm still waiting for the picketing in front of the you know, grocery stores. You know, what right does the grocery store have to buy that product in bulk and then try and sell it to me? That's rude. Like food is a human right. It's like, I'm sorry, that's just not how society works. That's not the way it goes. You know, and if you want, go visit Russia and see how awesome their living quarters are and see all their amazing food choices.
I wouldn't visit, just move, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, but my guess is they're coming back pretty damn quick. So that's my guess. Might want to visit. This is just the economical side of me saying visit before you move there. I saw one thing pop up. Rob asked, can you imagine Matt debating sales technique with Cardone? Honestly, how that would probably go is like the Jordan Belfort interview. That's honestly how that would probably go.
Hey, zero interest is a level of interest.
I know. Exactly right, Cody. You nailed it. And so Jordan, while completely crooked and should pay back all of the people that he ripped off, he should absolutely pay them all back because we all know he's worth tens of millions of dollars based on him selling courses and his skills and his channels. And I don't like the fact that he can hide that from those people because he flat out ripped people off. That said, sales wise, he's still a G. He's still money. You know, he just is. And I've done sales training for years, been in sales for years. He is a G. And Grant went a little bit nuts in that interview. And I was sad about that because I actually think Grant's a huge, but he was just going to win the argument and he still lost because what he was saying was just factually inaccurate. Unless, do you guys have a conflicting view? Do you believe?
No,
not on that one.
Yeah, exactly.
I think he's really good at what he does.
He's a better marketer than a salesperson, and that's fine.
Agreed.
And he's not a terrible sales guy unless he's just hell-bent on being right when he's not.
Correct. Yeah. Common sense is the better part of valor on that stuff. Dave S. And I saw, Mike, you talked a little bit about this, but Dave S. question, retiring from federal LEO service in a couple of months and moving from California to Florida. Congratulations. Considering getting my real estate license for potential future deals and obtaining real estate professional status. Thoughts on this plan? Millennial Mike, since you're a cop,
Right.
police officer.
Either one.
Okay, you'd be here. We have some sensitive folk, but walk us through that a little bit, and I can kind of chime in on the real estate professional thing because we are one, or my wife is one. But
the clarification to make before you go, Mike, is he doesn't need to be an agent to get rep status.
Correct.
So, but go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, you don't have to. But it is extremely hard to get that professional status if you actually have a full-time job. So that is not actually related to real estate. But yeah, so LEO means law enforcement officer. And to Matt's point, if people are complaining about being called cop, they're too sensitive, because I'm just happy when people don't kill me or tell me to delete myself or something like that. But ultimately, yeah, man, that's kind of exactly the same plan that I have. I've been investing in real estate. As soon as I get to the point where I'm financially free to do the real estate investments, I'm piecing out of Seattle. Sorry, Cody and Christian. It's been nice. I'll attend your Robin Hood events, but I am going to Florida, get a little bit closer to Uncle G.
Why aren't you living in Gary? What's wrong with Gary?
Well, my plan is to go to Gary for like 3 months. That is my plan.
All right.
And I will, for 3 months of the year, I will look for properties, buy them, and then I'll get them remodeling while I'm away. So, but why? I'm not putting my kid in the Gary school district. Heck no. Heck no.
They have private schools there, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm sure you will. And I would just take them. There's cities that are nicer just outside. You go down to Crown Point, it's a 30-minute drive. It's a much nicer city. The price point's in the 300,000 to 400,000 range. So yeah, there's lots of areas where it would be doable. But dude, I don't want to live in the Midwest. It's cold. Do you guys know what snow is? We see it once in a while here. Matt knows what it is. No.
Yes.
Oh God, Matt knows
20
what it
years
is.
of my life in North Dakota, freezing. No, thank you.
I was going to say, I think Mike knows better. I mean, because Mike, where you are or where you were growing up,
Coldest in the country.
Yeah, coldest in the country. And because I've literally been to Bismarck, North Dakota. Talk about a bucket of suck.
Yeah.
And I come from 8 feet of snow. And I'm like, how did I worsen my position? This is awful. Dion, did you want to talk about real estate professional at all?
I gotta head out, guys. So I'm heading out.
Okay.
See,
Cody.
Cody.
Yeah,
See you later,
There's
man.
Cody. I'll hang out.
do it.
So on the real estate professional, he's retiring, so he's not going to have a W-2. Very easy to hit the real estate professional thing. You just have to show that you worked more than 751 hours in real estate. Not as an agent, could be managing your properties, dealing with tenants, managing repairs, anything to do with your real estate. If you want to get that agent status, are you looking for a job? Because if you're just getting the agent status to do your deals better, would you want to work with an agent that's only ever had one customer? Agent fees, broker fees, licensing fees, regulations that you're held to at a higher standard because you're a professional in the industry instead of just a buyer, where I can send love letters to sellers and every agent go, oh, you can't do that. No, you can't do that.
Exactly.
You have to put a trademark after the word realtor anytime you use it because you have a license in that industry and you're held to all kinds of ridiculous rules I don't even have to know. So like there's just this list of reasons why I'm not an agent. But if you're looking for a job, something to do in retirement when you're out of law enforcement, good move, and you want to go into being an agent. Like Rob said, Millennial Mike is looking for a way to continue to get shot at when he's no longer working in law enforcement. So he's going to go to Gary, Indiana and be an agent, right? You're not going to get that in Florida, probably. But,
You guys haven't read the same Florida man articles I have.
true. If you're looking for a job and you're actually going to work in real estate and help other people close transactions, that would be enough to justify the fees and the broker fees, because you break it down. If you're going to close on your deal, you're in a brokerage to have access to the MLS. So you have MLS access fees, brokerage fees. Brokerage is going to take half your commission anyway. Then you're going to have taxes on your commission because that's income. Maybe that real estate professional will help you there. But unless you're looking for full-time real estate work, I would not get my agent's license because it doesn't help you find deals. I'd still have other agents with auto searches set up to find those deals.
Yeah, I agree. So what we did was we made my wife a real estate professional. I still have a W-2. We made her a real estate professional because she was doing the books anyway. So then there's a couple things that she took over on top of the books that, like going and collecting money or going and doing the deposits at the bank, all things that are related to the properties, that we just said, okay, for the time that you're the real estate professional, we'll just put that on your shoulders to do that. And that got her past her 17 hours or whatever, or 17 hours a week. That's what's needed. The other thing is keep a log. Absolutely. So she logs all of her time, effort, and energy, because we know that basically like Tuesdays and Thursdays from 8 to 3 p.m. I know that she's going to be in her office doing work for the business. And then it's pretty easy to add on the rest of the hours throughout the week when we're doing check runs or mail runs or furnace out or whatever. But that's the real estate professional thing. I see no value, truly no value. Talk to 10 real estate investors, and you'll find that maybe one of them will have their license. Christian, you don't have yours, right?
I let mine expire.
Right. But you had it and then let it go, right?
Yeah. And I had it because I was working on building a call center where we had 10 people calling for agents and none of the agents were closing. And I was like, guys, I'm going to show you how easy this is. I've never sold a piece of real estate. And Cody and I came in and cleaned up. Yeah. And that's the only reason I did that, was just to prove a point that I was providing valuable leads that were not closing. I was just frustrated. So I got my license and then sold a bunch of real estate. That's the only reason I ever had it.
What you should tell the story more. That's a fantastic story. I've never heard that one.
Okay. So this is how Cody and I met. So we were working at a brokerage that I won't name because we dropped the fact that the guy running that was a turd too often. But so guy who owned the brokerage, owned a property management company, bought this building he shouldn't have bought and built a whole call center in it. He's like, I don't know how to run a call center. I've had 7 years of phone sales experience at a really high level. And so I was like, okay, I'll run this team. So I hired 10 people. And basically what we're doing is researching small multifamily. So duplex, triplex, fourplex. CoStar has all the data for 5 and up. And really they only care about 25 and up units. Zillow has all the single family data. So it's like, hey, let's create a data product where we call people, we ask about the property, we verify the square footage, the rents, we get our own proprietary data. And then, oh, by the way, we're going to be calling 100 more people today. Are you looking to buy more real estate? Really passive way to ask, are you buying or selling? And we created a whole database in Salesforce on who's looking for what. And then sometimes you call on a property and like, oh, I'm actually trying to get rid of this. And so we just have this whole buy sale AI matching thing. And when there's a match, it kicked a lead out to a broker. Problem is the brokers never close these leads. And the leads are literally, I'm looking to sell this building. And here's a list of 10 people who said they're looking to buy a building in this area of this unit count at this price. How is this not happening?
Yeah.
So Cody walked into my office one day and I'm like, dude, these leads aren't closing. And they're only distributing to 2 much more established brokers. And Cody's like, dude, I have clients for this. Cody and I instantly sold 3 deals, just instantly. Cody's like, I'll just write them up. You represent the other side. Let's go. Walked to my office for, I think it was like 2 days. Cody walked to my office. We got 3 deals done. And then everything got gummed up in the system again. It was just a mess. But literally just people would not sell because brokers suck. And most brokers don't really want to sell real estate. You can hand them a lead and say, this person wants to buy this property and this person wants to sell this property, and they still won't close it. As a sales guy, I looked at that and went like, oh, there's money to be made here.
Heck yeah. That's exactly right. And it's really funny because, 80% of brokers completely suck and 15% are functional and can do the job. And then 5% are elite, like Beth. Beth is elite. Beth Traverso, if you guys don't know who I'm talking about on the live stream, but Beth is elite. My guy Jay is elite. I will only work with, when it comes to getting them involved in a deal, I will only work with my select. If it comes to somebody bringing me a deal, I say, okay, let's go through the process together, because I believe the one, that dance with the one who brung you. And so I will always do the deal with that person because they did the work, they created the opportunity, and now I'm going to reward them with a bigger commission check. That's how it goes. I just want to reward the work being done. Because I think that's critical. Terry asked about what snow is. It's this white powder that cost me $4,000 every time it falls here.
That's cocaine.
Yeah. I believe, I don't know, but I believe that that's far more fun than the white powder that happens here. And they have to remove it with plows. So I have a feeling I know what Escobar feels like, although slightly more poor. But that's just the thought. Dave S, thanks. Yes, have a pension and looking to support income in retirement in a real estate field. Okay. I have 11 doors out of state in OKC. Hey, OKC, 2 of the top 10 markets right now, Tulsa and Oklahoma City. So good for you. And a few in Florida. Shout out to Dion sharing his seller finance tips with me. Awesome. Very good. Glad that worked out for you. Matt Bob has a question for Dion. Please remind us how great LLCs are in asset protection. I'm sure it's almost impossible to pierce the veil of this great disregarded entity.
I like how Mike just drops his head and shakes it. So Matt,
Well,
thank
I'll
you
go
for
get
the super
lunch.
chat. I appreciate you supporting Matt's channel. I don't want to argue with BF because if BF has rentals and he has LLCs in place and it helps him sleep, that's the right call. Like that's what I was saying. They're both right. The counties where I invest, they don't pierce the veil, Matt. So it's Matt Bob. So that's not even the problem. They use the 1996 IRS precedents and disregard them. When you are sued, all of your assets are your assets. That's all of your LLCs. So if somebody has rentals and is willing to take action, have as many LLCs as you want. But the blanket advice that we see where Glover asked a question and BF came in trying to help, this is what I see in Facebook all the time. From his perspective, with however many rentals he has, he wants LLCs. Great. We don't know at that point whether, and it's not G Lover, but Glover has or is starting, and all of the barriers that an LLC puts in place. Like has BF thought, you're more likely to be sued with your rentals in an LLC than in your own name because it looks like a business, and people think businesses have deeper pockets. Like your lending is worse. You have no tax benefits, like all those things. So I don't want to go on the LLC rant, like to do the thing. That's why Mike dropped his head. He's like, oh, we just lost 10 minutes in this live stream. But for the people who have partners, want to use hard money where the lenders might require an LLC, or you have several rentals and you have money you can completely waste on something to make you sleep better, go for it. But to just toss out the information as, oh, if you have an LLC, better have an LLC for each property. Right? Don't ever have 2 properties in one LLC. Can't house hack, can't owner occupy, lose all the best benefit. Christian, you put them in an LLC, went to refinance, had to pay to pull them out of the LLC to do the refinance. Like, so we can put a bunch of steps in the way of a new investor by saying, you better have an LLC when it doesn't do anything that people expect it to. But there are times that you should have an LLC. It's just not
like if you have partners. If you have partners, you want an LLC.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah. If me and Mike buy a place together, it's going to be an LLC, an entity where everything is written up now in writing while we're all getting along, not 3 years from now when there's some disagreement where we go, oh, well, you should probably put this disagreement in writing, but we have a difference of opinion. So how the heck do we do that now? Right. That's the point of the LLC, is when you have partners. One of the points.
Christian, how do you hold your assets?
Everything's in LLC. Most properties are in their own. However, if I have a partnership that wants to expand, we don't want to change any of the things from the operating agreement. I've had a few LLCs that have bought more properties. Like we have one with a 12-plex with 3 people, all 33% ownership. And we bought a 12-plex. Then we wanted to expand. Same partners wanted to buy a 10-plex. So that LLC bought another 10-plex. And then that also bought a beautiful little duplex up the hill. But generally speaking, every transaction has its own LLC. Every set of partnerships has its own LLC. And if you want some legal protection, have different partners on your different LLCs. Well, the one thing the court system will look at is we don't want to adversely impact a whole bunch of different people. So when you have 6 partners and 6 different LLCs, it's really hard to differentiate. Well, how much do we want to sue Christian for? And is it fair to everyone else if we take these properties?
Sure.
So you get to add some protection by having partners. You get different headaches. Don't get me wrong. People suck. Even great people can suck to be partnered with. We've had a few partnerships that have been really rough. So choose your headache, but you do get some protection if you have various partnerships with different people.
Sure. Oscar had asked a question earlier. You 3 are awesome. Thank you, Oscar. This was before Cody joined. let's see, quoting Christian. Question, when you house hack, do you have to let your insurance know in case of an incident? You do not. And the reason why is because when you live there, you have typical homeowners insurance. When you move out, they're not going to cover any of the things that you own in the house. And so it then typically goes to something called a fire policy. So talk to your insurance broker, but that's typically the general rule, is that if you're living there, you have to have a homeowner's policy because you want all your stuff covered. However, if you are moving out, then it changes over to a fire policy. Believe it or not, your insurance costs will go down. Anything to add to that, Dion?
That's what I was going to say, is the most important thing is to let your insurance know that when you stop house hacking or move from one place to another, that the place you move out of is no longer being house hacked, because your insurance goes down when it's just a rental.
Yeah.
Right. It's more to insure a rental than the property you're living at. But insuring your stuff is way more expensive than insuring the property. So when you move and you're no longer insuring your stuff, even because an insurance rep got all pedantic on me and said, no, it's a little bit higher than what it would be to insure the property. Right. But my stuff. So my duplex went from 900 to 5 something when I moved out. So not quite a 50% drop in insurance. And my fourplex will drop if I ever stop house hacking here. So do you have to let your insurance know? Probably not. But do you like money?
Yeah, exactly. It's one of those things where cost goes down. Clint LeClaire, when the LLC went the LLC route after frivolous claim prevented me from refining. Yep, when rates were in the 2s. Yeah, it's more complicated, but also my audit risk has dropped dramatically. So yes, Clint, so go ahead.
The most common audits are done by people who self-file, right? So if you have an LLC, you're more likely to file with a CPA. So technically, if you look at the statistics from IRS, you're less likely to be audited.
Correct.
But that's because you're using an LLC, a CPA, not because you're in an LLC. There's too many acronyms, right?
Yep, I agree. And I remember he actually kind of explained it because he was getting sued, was trying to refi, and they wouldn't let him refi because of the pending lawsuit. So he was stuck. And had it been an LLC, that would have been a different story. So that makes sense. Dave, and so yeah, I think that's I get the strategy, and I think that that's the one scenario where it makes sense. But at the same time too, those are the calculated risks I think we all have to make the decision on. And I think Clint made the right one for him, and that's what matters. Dave S. So would you suggest a higher general umbrella policy like 5 to 10 million to help mitigate the lawsuit threat? Yeah. So honestly, what I would do is find out the cost of the insurance and do what makes you feel the most secure. A lot of times you can go from 5 million to 10 million for a few $100 a year. You can go up to 20 million for maybe an extra grand. You lose nothing if it gives you peace at night to spend $1,000 to know we can go to 20 million on this thing. Like at that point, you have to have made somebody sick because one of your, some private part of your business is manufacturing uranium in the basement. Like that's the level you got to go to get to like 20 million bucks, So that's where for me, yeah, I like to load up on insurance. But the other thing too is I also have a high deductible, because the idea that I have is insurance is meant to ensure that I don't blow up. It's not to ensure that I never have to pay a penny out of pocket. So my insurance premiums have gone from, they would be 160 to 190,000 a year down to about 80,000 a year. I have a higher deductible. But that's how I've essentially structured that. Christian, what do you guys do with insurance?
Insurance, let's see, I go through, what is it? I think I have like the same, I have a short-term insurance rep who's really good with the resorts because they're expensive and tricky, especially post-COVID. Insurance companies hate insuring hospitality.
For sure.
So I got a guy for that. And then I use, what is it? American Family just does all the other ones. I have one rep who's really good, who knows his stuff, and I consider him part of our board of directors. Whenever something comes up on any building, I have the same one guy I call, and we get pretty basic insurance. I find that when we started and I didn't have any money, I had to pay more in insurance and have lower deductibles because big money can wipe us out. Now when stuff goes wrong, I don't like doing a lot of insurance claims because then insurance goes up in price and you're harder to insure.
Exactly.
So I'm actually going to be migrating everything this year to a higher deductible and lowering my monthly cost on those because
Have
like,
you
we
ever
just had a
shopped
loop.
around for rates, Christian?
Was that?
Have you ever shopped around for rates on insurance?
We are going to be doing that this year. When we first started, it was just convenience. We're buying so fast and learning so much. I'm like, I can't burn time on insurance when I'm trying to figure out how to file taxes.
Exactly.
Let me connect you to somebody because I looked at American Family too. I'm paying, no kidding, less than a fifth of what they quoted me on every single policy.
That
So,
may be that
like
that
my
may
most
be-
expensive policy is $900 a year, and AmFam started at like 4,800.
Yeah.
Wow. My most expensive policy is 20,000 a year.
Dude. Oh my word. Is that the
It's for a resort though with waterfront.
All right. So take the resort out. What's the most, so the 38 unit, like as an example.
Oh God, Cody knows that off the top of his head. I'd have to do some research.
The only reason I ask is because to Dion's point, that's exactly what I found. I found that, so one of the big insurance companies in the country is Chubb, CHUBB. So that's somebody that a lot of people use for larger assets. And I was getting, like, to Dion's point, 7,000, 8,000, 9,000 bucks through them. And I was like, you know what? I trust my insurance broker extremely to the high level. And I just said, you know what? I just need to look at that number elsewhere. And I got it bought and paid for at 1,700.
Oh my goodness. Well, looks like I have some savings to do. Turns out if expenses go down, values go up. That's the cash flow. So I am good with all of that.
It's true. Yeah. It's one of those kind of crazy things where, again, it's just like, so to speak to your point, Christian, I saw it and it wasn't a priority in the business because I could always find a way to get more income. And I was always focused on the next deal. But then part of the optimization process is insurance, because
Yep.
I was on pace to spend 160, 170,000 bucks. And I mean, now you're talking real money. That's like $15,000 a month I was going to spend on insurance. And when it was all said and done, I did a little bit of work. I spent about a week on the process and I got it down to like 80. And that's found money. That's money that that's money I don't have to make anymore. It's all that goes all to the bottom line. That's all profit now. And that was purely by making a half a dozen phone calls and shopping. And I know you and Cody are really good at that. So it's getting to the point where you're the size you are, which we're going to be well worth your time, I think.
I dropped my insurance info in the chat for the company that I use and the brokerage that I go through. You can find the company through any brokerage. I still shop, even though
Yes.
they give me the killer rates. I send back and I go, this is what the competition sent me, and to let them know how they're comparing.
Yes.
There we go. I've taken a screenshot of that, so I now have that.
I'm telling, yeah, Christian, that's a huge part of optimization. You guys will be able to, I know that you treat your employees right. So you guys will be able to do your vacation in Mexico and the $1,000 a night rooms just by what you saved on your insurance. And I saw, thanks Rob for the $2 super chat, Avengers Lambo Wrap Design Roundtable. So if you mean to wrap my Lambo in an Avengers design, no, that is a hard no.
I see you doing Transformers anyway.
Yeah, I mean, maybe. So yeah, I mean, thankfully the goal of the car isn't to get, 13-year-olds, so.
I mean, you'd get me.
Yeah, I was gonna say, or a bunch of Millennial Mikes. But yeah, it's funny because no joke, talking about the wrap discussion though, real short, is I want a specific color. And what I find is there's certain models where the same color is 15 to 20,000 bucks less expensive. So I started shopping to find a company that would wrap the car. And so I can get it wrapped for 3 G's. So I can save 15 on the car and I can get it wrapped exactly the color I want for 3. So that's what we're doing.
You need to get it wrapped, but the wrap just needs to say pay your rent. So we can refer to it as the pay your rent Lambo.
Dude, the license plate is going to be your rent.
Yeah, your rent's due.
Yeah.
Mike, are you comfortable doing the short that
Oh,
we did the
for
other day?
sure. 'Cause- So Dion and I recorded some shorts, and I decided to lean into the controversy a little bit. So some of the shorts that we did were, as a landlord, I sleep really great at night because I just love living your paycheck to paycheck. So we're gonna see if some of those ones kick off. But yeah, dude, if Matt wraps his Lambo with a pay your rent and rents due, the amount of douchery content we could do with that, oh god, it'll be glorious.
Problem is, it's going to get keyed. The wrap is going to be like ruined in the first week.
Man up. You got money for it. You're taking it to Vegas. Come on, you'll be fine.
Stop. Yeah, man. Yeah, man. I don't want the car to spend time in the shop constantly getting rewrapped because we needed to film some shorts proving how much of a dick I was. I can prove how much of a dick I am without a Lamborghini wrapped antagonizing people about their rent. However, that being said, my license plate will still be your rent. So Ned talks about up here, he talks about his rates in Louisiana. Yeah, Ned, this is one of the things that I think a lot of people aren't talking enough about. If you are oceanside or seaside in an area that gets any sort of storms or anything like that, it is crazy. I went to buy a tiny property that was kind of backed up to brackish water. And I was like, yeah, this house is a really good deal. I'm doing the numbers and I'm like, man, I can Airbnb this thing. Like the numbers will get sick. And the challenge was I got the insurance quote because I was like, you know what? It's close enough to the water, blah, blah, blah. I get the insurance quote. It's $9,700 a year. And they cap what they'll replace. They'll only give you $250,000 back. They cap it. So it's not even replacement value. It's truly, we cap it. It's 250K. So I'm literally paying money, just, $10,000 a year. Cause that number says to me, they know it's going to get flooded. They know it's going to get destroyed. They know it's going to get damaged. And that basically I'm just putting the damage on a payment schedule is really all I'm doing there. Do any of you guys, I mean, Christian and Cody, you guys own stuff that's waterfront. Is that part of what really, but do you guys get water storms or like, that sort of,
Their river floods their first building.
Yeah, we almost got the water comes like right up to the front door. We had the biggest flood in Union because it's Hood Canal that's all tides. I mean, that's salt water. That had the biggest flood in the last 53 years. So we had like an 18.5 foot swell. Pretty much everyone on the water side lost it. Fortunately for us, we don't have properties on the waterfront part. It's just our boat ramp, and then the prior owners kept their little RV over there. So we had to go out and like catch the kayaks and stuff. But there is a risk because you're on the water and you have swells like that. We also have a river that runs through the campus that floods when the canal floods. It covers the culvert that goes under the road. So our river just backs up. This year we had snow melting, heavy rain, and the largest king tide we've had in half a century. So yeah, that's a big piece of it. The waterfront is expensive, but what really kills you is just short-term rental insurance is insanely higher. For our little Airbnb triplex, where we're only Airbnb-ing the top, where long-term rentals on the bottom, it's a little bit more than twice as expensive as our other insurance. And I shopped that one and I was like, you got to be kidding me. This is a huge expense. And that's just what you're dealing with short-term rentals. That's the biggest thing.
Dang.
Yeah. And this is one of the things where I would encourage you guys, all investors, you guys really need to make sure you're looking at insurances because those premiums have changed a ton. And then Ned Talks, thanks so much for adding too. You can get supplemental insurance above that, but I did look at that too. It's really pricey. And so you need to account for it. So in New Hampshire, we don't have income tax and we don't have sales tax. So property tax is our big thing. So I was looking at this property. The property tax was $1,000 a month. The flood insurance was $1,000 a month. So before I paid a penny towards the mortgage, I'm already $2,000 in the hole. The mortgage was going to be like $2,400 a month. So it was $4,500 a month before I paid for water, sewer, maintenance, anything else. Jeez. And I'm like, this deal is such a dog. And they were selling it for like 300 grand. And I'm like, who is ever still going to even pay that? The numbers, you'd have to live there. And even then you're going to be paying like you have an $800,000 house because it was so bad. But that's the other thing to watch out for too. And I'm not sure, Cody and Christian, if you guys evaluate this because of the large multifamily stuff, have you looked at your water sewer bills increase?
I haven't seen a whole lot of that just because for a lot of our properties, we are on septic. And those have been pretty static. I actually love septic because I don't want to pay the city.
I'm with you.
Yeah, it's really expensive. I love septic. That being said, there's certain debt products that require you to be on sewer. We're taking a lot of our portfolio to agency, which means we're swapping a lot of stuff to sewer now. But a lot of those bills have stayed about the same. And then in Grant County, we have I think it's like the 5th cheapest water and the #1 cheapest electric in the United States.
That's
so
awesome.
when it increases, it goes from like nothing to a little bit more than nothing. We don't feel it.
So here in the last 5 years, we've seen a 50% increase in water sewer costs.
Oh.
So what they did was they slowed down on the property side. They slowed it down just a little bit, so it wasn't 11 and 12%. It was more like 5, but the water sewer is like I said, in 5 years is up 50%. So we have duplexes that will cost us $150 a month in water.
Ooh, that's really expensive.
It is.
That's about my total utility bill for a duplex is about 150 in Grant County.
For a year, for a quarter.
Oh no, that's like I think it's like 150
for a quarter, probably.
Yeah, that's probably about right.
Yeah. So we're like 150 a month.
They're cheap. They're really cheap out there.
It's very expensive here. It's very
you go over to the Seattle side though, and then that's doesn't even cover a month.
The most expensive water that I've ever heard of is in Bonnie Lake, Washington, and I pay for my duplex about $450 a month.
Oh, that's gross.
A month. And I was sitting there thinking there must be a leaking pipe, and I spoke to the owners on either side. It's that same price for them too, $450 a month it's insane. And they're not individually metered. So when I move out of this place, I will individually meter it and put it on tenants.
So here what I do, Mike, because the Tacoma one's not that expensive. It's about $100 a month for sewer and water for a duplex. So each tenant pays $55. 1 or 2 months in the summer, the water bill might spike to $150, $140. And then that little bit extra over what the monthly is the rest of the year compensates for that one higher month. So I just flat rate them. I don't meter it. And then check with your city. You might not be able to separate meter to tenants. You might have to separate meter both in your name because the owner is the only one in most municipalities here in Washington. The water has to be in your name, but you can then bill the tenant. But it's not like that they sign up like for the trash or whatever, where they can pay the bill and they get the payment set up.
Yeah, it is crazy because that's one of the things where, again, to Christian's point, we love stuff that's on septic. The problem is that can create a problem. It's like, because that makes even a bigger dent. Like when somebody has a problem there and you got to get it pumped and then serviced, and it's like, now you're $700. And so, it was the biggest. It's right now we spend quarterly, we spend about $18,000 a quarter on water and sewer, 18 or 19,000. It's a big number now. Landlord Nation, thank you very much for the super sticker. We appreciate it. It's always good hanging out. I mean, hopefully this is fun for you guys. I enjoy sitting down and talking shop with you guys and comparing apples to bowling balls. Let's see. Dave S., my homeowner's policy in West Palm Beach. Yeah, I can imagine. Jumped from 3,800 to 4,700 in 1 year, not waterfront, few miles inland. Hurricane Ian didn't help matters. That's the thing, is it's the hurricanes. That's why so much stuff in Florida is becoming unaffordable insurance wise. And that's where I think you're going to start seeing pricing pressures, mostly because you guys already have decent, property taxes, but I think it's going to likely get worse. Ned talks, my 20plex went up from $600 on the water to 1,300 in 2 years. Yeah. It's the rate by which these things are raising, which is the most concerning, because obviously I see, when I had 10 units, I looked at it a little bit, but when I've got 130 units and I'm seeing across the portfolio, these increases, like that's the other thing too, is what I recommend doing. The strategy that I have with my insurance broker is we found the top 3 carriers for our area and for our asset class. And every single year we give them the portfolio and say, price this out. Every year we do that. And then if it's close, we take it away from the incumbent and give it to somebody else. Because unless the claim's, $50,000, I'm going to pay for it out of pocket. So that's largely what we do. Dion, have you done anything like, you've never had an insurance loss before, right?
So before I was an investor in 2006, I had a neighbor's tree hit my house, $1,300 worth of damage to the window. Not an investor, uneducated, had insurance pay for it. Insurance rates tripled, and for 5 years, no one else would insure me. So my deductibles are as high as possible. So most are at 10,000. A couple are at 5 because that's as high as they had available when I set the policy up. And it would have to be 30 or 40,000 or more before I said, okay, I'm going to reach in and pay with insurance.
Yep.
Yeah. So true. Ned talks, a $4,000 water bill and my tenants had 6 leaking toilets in 1 month. Dude, just preach. I literally am I'm contesting the water bill. We did have a leak. We did find it. We did address it, but it wasn't a leak in the toilet pipe or the toilet. And that is one of the biggest issues. We actually found it. It was a leak in the basement. It was a pinhole. So I made the argument successfully. I'm just waiting for the credit, but I made the argument successfully that yes, you can charge me for the water, but you cannot charge me for the sewer because it didn't go into the pipe. It leaked into my basement. So because it didn't go down your pipe, you can't charge me for it going down your pipe. You can charge me for the water, but you can't charge me for the sewer. And that cut the bill in half from $1,200 down to $600. So if you ever have a leak and it's not something that's actually leaking into the pipe, then you can contest that and say, I didn't use all that water in the pipe. It was a burst pipe and it leaked all over the place. And so I'm setting up for 3 more of those with one of my cities, because when we had that night of fun, minus 47-degree wind chill, we had all those burst pipes. There were 3 units in this one city where I know we used a bunch of water and it hurt. But we didn't put it down the pipe. It all just filled into the basement. We went swimming in that freezing cold temperature. Then we threw our skates on. We skated on it in the basement. So I know we're coming up on a couple of hours. I appreciate you guys all hanging out with me. Dion, any last thoughts? I want to give everybody a chance for last thoughts.
Every time we see landlord suck, it should be illegal. I would like to see the solution. If somebody can present a solution that makes sense, I'll listen. That's my final thoughts. Yeah. Mike?
This is a great topic. We've done a couple of videos on this topic on my channel recently. The 3 of us have. Private property ownership is something that makes America great. The fact that we have the right to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, that type of stuff. There's nothing that says you cannot own something and come up with a mutually agreed upon contract with another private citizen. The government trying to get in the way of that. It's fundamentally un-American. And it's dumb because anything that the government interferes with, they inadvertently or advertently, if you're a conspiracy theorist, jack the prices up and make it far more expensive via regulation than if you had just let the 2 people come together in an agreement on their own. So if you want better rents, if you want more access to housing, if you actually want to solve the problems which you claim to believe are problems based on the current system, well, then what you need to do is deregulate, entice landlords via a carrot instead of a stick, or entice builders via a carrot instead of a stick to build more units that actually create that more affordable housing units, not just unilaterally take a freaking stick and beat them into submission and try to take stuff away from them. It's not going to work. So we try to help people. Everybody here does Section 8. Actually, I wanted to ask earlier. I don't know if Cody and Christian do. Maybe they can answer, but we all do Section 8. Yep. We all try to work with low income people. We all do our best to try to provide housing to those people who are in dire straits or in unique situations. We just want people who are going to be honest and take care of the property. And we'll do our best to give you something that you can be proud of, to live in, to have friends over, to have family come visit you. And we will make sure your stuff looks good and is taken care of. The government won't.
What Mike meant to say was fixed income.
fixed income or low income.
Yes.
Sometimes you're fixed at a really low rate, like I was when I was a kid growing up in Section 8.
It happens. Yeah. Entry level housing. We all of us provide that. Cody and I have some nice stuff, but a vast majority of our portfolio is stuff that no one else gave any love to. And so we came in, and that was the opportunity, is we're going to be the group who can fix this up. And we spend about $1 million, a little bit more than $1 million a year fixing up our properties. Like, prior owners didn't do that. We didn't pay ourselves. I haven't paid myself for, I don't know how long. It's been a while. I'm doing a refi that I'll get paid today out of a cash out refi, but out of rents, I haven't paid myself in 4 months. It all gets reinvested back into the properties because I want to provide nicer properties. And turns out those are worth more. So it works for me and it works for my tenants. However, if you guys want to hate on landlords, please, any article that comes out about me, any of our videos, please drop it there. I get paid when you guys boost my articles with all of your comments. And I do appreciate that money because that costs no one anything. So yeah, if you hate landlords, Cody and Christian multifamily strategy, jump on board and hate on us.
Yeah, I am all for it. As I always say, listen, you can have your opinion. It can be landlords suck and it should be illegal, but that just means you don't understand simple economics. So I would be going to your college and asking for a refund because they didn't teach you the simple principles of how an economy works. And so at the end of the day, I think it's really interesting that everyone has an opinion in these groups, whether it's a Facebook group or an article about, because we've all been published. We've all been published in Business Insider. And the one thing that I find consistent is that I tagged it. I did 100 responses and I was rude in my response. It was my little own case study. And I said, P.S. your rent's late. And out of those 100 responses, only 2 said I own. So I guess I was right. I guess the people that really hate landlords are the ones that have landlords. And that just means you might have a bad one. And we're not saying that bad landlords don't exist. There's a lot of them. But the fact of the matter is that landlord probably wasn't the one who raised your rent. He's probably the one who's not taking care of the property because he didn't raise your rent and he doesn't know how to properly run a business. And that's where foreign investors like us come in, because it is a business. We will go in, we will make it much nicer. We will add a lot of value. And then we expect to be able to pay that bill. So at the end of the day, we're making that investment, banking that we're going to make a better property, a better area, and that somebody else is going to be really appreciative of that and want to pay for that. And if that's not you as a tenant, that's okay. But the thing that you'll recognize in going from, dingy rental to dingy rental to dingy rental is the only thing that stayed the same was you. So it's not actually the landlord problem. It's actually a you problem. But anyway, that's what I have to say about that action. And you can send all the hate mail to lumberjacklandlord@gmail.com because I have a delete button too. So last thing I'll say too is Ned Talks. My Section 8 tenants are great. I agree with you. So many are, some aren't. It's easier to deal with people than those with an 800 plus credit score. I call it the curse of the 800 credit score. It is absolutely true. And it is so real. And I have had just as many people be a problem with 800 credit scores as I have with sub 600 credit scores, if that tells you anything. So guys, as always, thanks so much for hanging out. We'll let you go, YouTube. As I always say, we try and create great content for you. Please make sure you like and subscribe and check out my live stream on Sunday, 11:30 a.m. Eastern time. Mike's live stream whenever he can get his time away from saving lives. Dion's live stream Tuesday nights at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And Christian, yours is at 7. What time is yours?
Ours is at 3 p.m. PST on Wednesdays.
3 p.m. PST on Wednesdays, 6 p.m. EST on Wednesdays. So YouTube, thanks so much for hanging out with us, and we'll catch you in the next one.